This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to find tickets for the football games you want to see up close and in person this season. There's nothing like being in the stadium for the biggest plays of the year, and with SeatGeek, it's never been easier to get the guaranteed seats you want for a great value. With SeatGeek, you always get the best deal on every ticket because SeatGeek price compares for you by searching multiple ticket sites. Prices can vary depending on where you shop, but SeatGeek will always find you the lowest available price. And SeatGeek wants to help you get the most bang for your buck. That's why every ticket on SeatGeek is given a grade based on value. You'll immediately see any underpriced seats and be able to find the best deal to fit your budget. Plus, every ticket you buy on SeatGeek is backed by their 100% guarantee, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Best of all, my listeners get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. To get your $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app, go to the Settings tab, and click Add a Promo Code. Enter promo code Mike. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code Mike today.
This is Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
It's Gronk against Cam Chancellor. Could you possibly ask for a better one-on-one, mano-a-mano matchup in the entire NFL right now?
I wasn't trying to make contact. I was just trying to make a move and get outside and catch a fade ball.
College football Saturday. It was something we hadn't seen in 31 years, the numbers 2, 3, and 4 teams falling on the same day. I think the conversation about Zeke Elliott for MVP right now gains a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, it does. He is unbelievable to watch. So is Dak.
Dallas is for real.
Now, here's Mike and Mike.
We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We're going to give you the winning word 3 times today, second to last day of our contest, where we're taking you with us to the national championship game. And the first time we give it to you is coming in 20 minutes. So just make sure you're with us. We'll give you the word. We'll give you the ways to enter. And you could win a trip to the college football national championship game with us, Mike and Mike, who are joined in studio now. Tom Waddle is still here. And our buddy Smooth Louis Riddick is ready to roll on a Monday. How are you, Louis?
Great. Wasn't that the best NFL weekend so far?
Oh,
by far.
Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier. I needed that.
Hey.
I didn't need Bucks and Bears, but I needed Steelers and Cowboys and Patriots.
Yeah,
well, you know what? I needed Alshon Jeffrey to play, but actually, it wasn't
Was he on
his
your
fault.
fantasy team?
No, I said yesterday on Insiders, I said, this would be a breakout game for him against the Tampa secondary that's kind of weak, kind of small on the perimeter. And what
Didn't
does
work
Jay
out
do?
well.
Jay does exactly what I've always said Jay always does. Which is he's just a tease, man, every week. I mean, it's just always, against the Minnesota Vikings, it was, hey, look, Cutler's back.
Well, Greeny and I were talking about the wide spectrum of.
You know what? It's so you watch that game, and I kept looking at it out of the corner of my eye, going, because I'm looking for Alshon Jeffrey to just go off, and I'm going, well, every time I see him completing something, it's to the other team.
Yeah,
and he just that is Jay Cutler to a T, and it's so frustrating.
Okay, I mean seriously. Bear talk and jet talk.
No,
Hey, I'm sorry.
I haven't even mentioned the
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do
Louis,
that. I'm sorry. My bad.
That's where you wanted to go?
I know, man. I'll talk about Dallas for 2 hours if you want.
Well, there's more than just Dallas, but Chicago?
I know,
I knew
it was
the
just
Jets were going to follow. And
it's just one of those things, though, from a pure football perspective, man. I'm sitting there going, what is going on here? that place is going to get torn up, man.
They basically lost 36-3 to a team that hadn't won at home all year long.
Amazing.
Their only touchdown coming on a Hail Mary.
I have so many things to say, but I'm going to hold them in for my 4-hour show.
Do it. So
this afternoon.
Greeny has some other stuff.
Yeah. Tommy Waddle's got plenty of Bulls talk for you coming up this afternoon in Chicago. Okay. All right. You want to start? Let's go to Dallas since you mentioned it. All right. I mean, that to me, New England, Seattle last night's a great game. It's a heavyweight fight.
Sure.
And if that's the Super Bowl again, we'd all be happy. But to me, Dallas-Pittsburgh was the most entertaining game of the entire NFL season to this point.
You know why? Not for all the things that happened on the perimeter with all the exciting skill players in that game. Look, Antonio Brown will entertain you all day long. Zeke will entertain you all day long. So will Dez, Jason Witten. Great. Some of those guys are going to be Hall of Famers. But you know what? It's the 2 touchdown runs that catch my attention for Dallas late in the football game. Because if you saw a goal, like at that point in time in the game, that's when Dallas said, you know what? All this talk about us being the best offensive line, we're going to show you exactly why. Tyron Smith one play, Ronald Leary one play. Mm-hmm. I believe he took Ryan Shazier for a ride.
They did.
And then on the next one, it was Tyron Smith's turn. And they just started, at that point, they were snatching the heart out of the Steelers' defense. And that's what that offensive line does. Zeke is great, but you see some of those holes he's run into. I mean, these guys are literally beating other grown men to the ground and stomping a hole in them and going, look, this is what we're paid to do. This is how we're going. I mean, look, you see Ryan Shazier on a couple of those. He wanted no part of that. You know when guys slip and why they take on blocks with like half a man? Because they don't want to face that stuff up. They got tired of getting hit in the face. Mike Tomlin mentioned that. They were talking about it on the broadcast. He said, when Dallas, when it comes to like the third and fourth quarter, defensive backs and linebackers get tired of hitting Zeke. It starts to hurt. And you saw yesterday, they were like, look, I know we're in this thing, but man, these big boys are just getting a little bit tired. It's starting to get a little painful here.
I think one thing to notice when you see a great O-line, and we talk about them a lot, is on that screen pass when Zeke went untouched, 3 of those offensive linemen were downfield. And the key to watching a O-lineman downfield, does he stay on his feet?
Yeah.
You would see O-linemen at times just dive at somebody and just kind of waste themselves. But these guys stay on their feet. They're blocking smaller, more athletic people and linebackers and DBs, and they're staying on their feet and just clipping people enough or getting a hold of people enough to make a space for Zeke Elliott. So, listen, I talk about him all the time. I think that O-line and the Raiders O-line, which averages about 390 pounds, are the two best in the league, and you see both teams being highly successful because of it.
Yeah, we've been very critical of offensive line play for an extended period of time, and with good reason. But you mentioned it, Mike. Arguably the two best teams, and I don't want to overlook the New England Patriots, and we could talk about their offensive line and the job that Dante Scarnecchia has done with them to make them a better group. But the Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys, they just road grade you, and they protect their quarterback. You put it together, it's the reason why these teams are as good as they are.
Yeah, you can ignore that position at your own peril if you want. But there's one of two things you better do. You either better invest in it heavily, like the Raiders have done through free agency, like Dallas has done through the draft, or you better make sure you have one of the absolute best O-line coaches that money can buy, and he better be one of your highest-paid coaches on your staff, like he is in New England, like Tom Cable out in Seattle, who, as you see, now he's starting to get those guys ramped up.
Right.
Last night it wasn't about, man, these offensive tackles can't block. Man, they can't capture the line of scrimmage. Last night it was about, man, C.J. Prosise has a lot of room to work here, and that's because he's starting to get them going on. There's always two different ways to skin a cat, usually when you're talking about building a team, and that's how you do it. You either draft and invest heavily in it, or you get guys who will be able to buy into a system like they're doing in Seattle. But if you don't have one of those two things working for you in this day and age in the league, as you see, that position in particular this year, and I'm glad that it's time that we're giving the offensive line some love and or looking at other teams and saying this is where they're deficient and this is why they're blowing up, like when we talk about the Vikings. But the teams that right now we're going to talk about in January, the big men are dominating.
Yep. Okay, so let me reset here for a moment. We've focused so far mostly at Dallas, Pittsburgh, and New England, Seattle, games of the day, without question. The teams that lost those two games, New England, they're obviously going to be fine. Yep. Pittsburgh, do we believe they're going to be fine? There's a little bit of discord there. Mike Tomlin's talking about it. Ben Roethlisberger's talking about they are 4-5. Now, the division lead is only 5-4, so they're sitting right there. They did have, were that been for a period of time. I guess what I'm saying is my basic feeling is the Steelers will right the ship, and I'm using this to build up to something. But do you agree with that?
Yes,
do you agree
I do.
Pittsburgh rights the ship?
Listen, they lost to a team with one loss, the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. I think Pittsburgh, yes, in the AFC are going to be one of the top teams. They had the offensive firepower to do it. It was the defensive side of the ball that we kind of worried about and just in seeing some of these plays. But we'll say again, they're going against the best offensive line in Dallas. They're going against a high-powered offense in Dallas, and they're not a very good defense at all. Mm-hmm. But I think offensively they have enough firepower between Le'Veon and Ben and Antonio Brown. And quite honestly, it's one of the few times their O-line was healthy yesterday. I actually looked at the starting five, and it's a starting five they really want to go with for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've missed some of their guys intermittently throughout the year. So, if you can heal up at the right time, I think they're going to be just fine.
Let me read you the Ben Roethlisberger quotes, guys. We don't have the audio, but he said, "We are undisciplined and not accountable. That's why the Cowboys are one of the best in the business, and we're not right now." When asked how they get to that point, Roethlisberger said, "I don't know. Is it players? Is it coaches? I don't know, but we need to get there quick."
Let me add to that. Remember, last week I talked about it. Le'Veon Bell tweeted this, and I can't stand when they do it, tweeted it saying that the mistakes we're making in practice, and they're not getting corrected in practice. He tweeted that out there. So, and we've heard Ben be critical of the practice habits as well. So Lewis, they have their house. They need to kind of square away there a little bit.
Yeah, for as much as the people who I know who have worked for Mike Tomlin respect his leadership and his organizational skills, there's without a doubt that's not going to resonate very positively with him. Mm-hmm. And you can best believe he's gonna tighten things up around there pretty quickly, because no coach, especially a guy like that, is going to like for some of his most marquee players kind of saying things like that about how he is running his organization. But I'm a little bit more worried about the Steelers on the football field than maybe some. I don't know if it's just a given that they right the ship here for a team that really has in the NFL. They're top 10 in terms of cap dollars committed to their offensive line. But if you watch their offensive line, you watched it a week ago against the Baltimore Ravens, and even watched it yesterday when I'm watching this game, they're not capturing the line of scrimmage like the Cowboys do, or like the Raiders do, or like Seattle started to do last night. They're not that kind of football team. Their identity is more so, let's spread you out. Let's make sure we get the ball to Le'Veon in a myriad of different ways in the passing game. Let's make sure we get it to Antonio Brown. But when they need it, they can't really punch somebody in the mouth and actually control the clock and just ram the ball down people's throats and really take control of a football game on that side of the ball. It's either Ben, Antonio, and Le'Veon, or it's one of those games against the Ravens where they totally look out of sync. And that's that team's season right now. They're up and down. And then defensively, they don't rush the passer very well. And their secondary just gets bludgeoned against premium perimeter players.
Tommy, does Pittsburgh turn it around this season?
They turn it around enough to be a conversation piece in the AFC, but I don't think they're an elite group that's going to go deep into the postseason. I know who they are on defense. They're average to below average, and they haven't made any progress. Offensively, I was impressed a little bit by the progress they made on that side of the football. They've been up and down, though. There have been games offensively like they just didn't even show up. The Eagles game was one of those games. I mean, we have never seen the wild swings with this offense that we have this year, but ultimately I believe they'll score enough points to be in the conversation.
I guess that's the thing, Greeny, is when you talk about the AFC, you say maybe by attrition, because who else is there? You have
especially in that division.
Well, that's what I mean. It's going to be the winner of that division, because the way it's going now, both wild cards are going to come from the West. You're going to have a winner. You have the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Broncos. Anybody worried about anybody in the South at this point? Either the Texans or Tennessee, which are second.
Miami,
right
Buffalo?
now. Miami or Buffalo. As far as comparing to Pittsburgh, I still, at the end of the day, like Pittsburgh, but they're going to have to win that division. They or Baltimore. We'll see what Cincinnati does tonight, because at this rate, it looks like both wild cards out of the West.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I watched last night's game as well, and I thought, as much as I think of the New England Patriots, the one thought that kept resonating with me was how much better would this defense look with Chandler Jones and Jamie Collins. And I understand why they did what they did, I think. But if this Patriots team gets to the postseason and ultimately cashes out a little bit early, and it's because of their defense, there are going to be some difficult questions to be answered, aren't there?
Yeah, and Bill Belichick won't answer them. Mike and Mike, these guys in studio with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, half the cost. I've been trying to work my way to another team, and that is the team that I'm just going to give you my opinion, and then I'm dying to hear yours. Tommy, I'll start with you. I don't think Green Bay's getting back up off the mat. I watched them yesterday. They got drilled. In every way you can get dominated in a game, they got dominated by a good young Tennessee team. But that's not Seattle they're playing yesterday, and they got punched in the face and never recovered.
They were down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. Look, they're still alive in the NFC North because the division is so bad. But outside of the division, I don't think they have any traction. I think there are some serious injury issues that you have to address. You don't have a healthy running game for a number of reasons. The offensive line has been a bit in flux for some time. James Starks was back yesterday, but Eddie Lacy hasn't been available. No Clay Matthews Jr., so the pass rush is affected, and that secondary has been decimated by injuries. They can't stop anybody at this point.
If you talk about a football team that right now seems as though there's something going on behind the scenes other than what's going on the football field, that's the one. They look like they have no soul right now. They have no real identity. On offense, Aaron just looks exasperated. Every play looks like playground ball. Yep. It just, every play looks like Aaron drops back. It's not there, run around. And then, he just has that look on his face that you see on the TV here where he sometimes just looks disgusted about, where am I supposed to go with the football here? A lot of their statistics earlier in the year, as far as like how they were as a run defense, you can tell that you needed some context with those because yesterday they got bludgeoned in the run game. The secondary's getting beat up, and they've had some players that have been out. Pass rush is just not getting there. I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Greeny. I think that they need to reset this offseason in a number of different ways. And I'll say this, though, in the AFC, there's one team, look, I have been super, super, super hard on the Dolphins because after they had played that Tennessee football team down in Miami, I'm sitting there going, you can go ahead and cash this season out for them. They may need to tear this thing up too. Why did they get things going? That offensive line all of a sudden came together. The left side, Brandon Albert and Laramie Tunsil started dominating people. And Jay Ajayi, all of a sudden you're going, Jay Ajayi looks like Ezekiel Elliott with his running style. He looks like Melvin Gordon. These young big backs that are one cut downhill in the fourth quarter, I don't want to hit you type of runners, they're dominating the league. Miami's one of those teams that you better keep an eye on.
Yeah, those running backs wear on you.
That's right. You better keep an eye on them.
To your point, I'm with you. I think Green Bay, there is just something missing there. They just, because of injuries or whatever, they don't have the talent anymore. They just don't have the talent to make the plays. It seems like Aaron Rodgers completely looking for Jordy Nelson first and everybody else after that. You want to go through injuries. You want to say they're just not good enough right now. But I am with you, and I also think internally there's just something not right in that locker room right now.
It feels like a change.
It does.
We don't sit here calling for people's jobs, but every once in a while, it just
it's a bad feeling.
Been there a long time. It feels like it may be time to start over. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Winning word in 5 minutes. We're going to give you the word, the ways to enter. You're coming with us to the college football championship game in Tampa. Mike? Did the Carolina Panthers take a knockout punch yesterday?
I think they did, because I thought to myself,
what a loss
man,
that was.
They can get back into this thing if they get a win, especially with Atlanta losing in Philadelphia. They can sit there. Atlanta would be at 5 or at
6-4.
Right, they're at 4 losses now. Carolina will only have 5 losses, so they could have been right there.
And it was there. Cam is dabbing, and
he absolutely is. We keep talking about teams being in it because the division's weak, and this is another one of those with Atlanta coming back like we kind of feared they may. Tampa Bay so inconsistent, and the Saints. I mean, the Saints have surprised me a little bit, though. They learn into losing on these extra point 2-pointers that they're giving up. But I'm with you about Carolina. I think that was the knockout blow to them. They were in this game, a home game. I thought they were going to get this one squared away. The Chiefs, the Chiefs just rise from the dead more slowly and consistently than any other team I've seen.
They did this without an offensive touchdown.
Yeah.
The Chiefs did not have an offensive touchdown.
How did Carolina lose that game?
Yeah.
I saw all of that. How did they lose that game?
You know what? It's those, we talk about these things, and when you hear some of the best coaches talk about the fact that in the end, look, the NFL is really set up this way for you to get to like minute 58, minute 56 of a football game, and then see who can kind of like bear down and do what they need to do in order to win a football game, whether that's get a turnover, execute in the red zone, kick a game-winning field goal. The Chiefs stay in it, and they keep fighting, and they win in the most ugly ways, blue-collar type of way that you could possibly win.
You want to talk, a defensive touchdown in the fourth quarter. I mean, Carolina got outscored 17-0 in the fourth quarter.
Those are the things that, how many times have we been taught those things on the practice field, which is whenever you intercept the ball, take it to the house. Yep. Practice getting, block somebody. Get the ball to the near sideline. Those things that you hear defensive coaches yell all the time. Kansas City gets it. Eric Berry returns it for a touchdown. Marcus Peters at the end of the football game. How many times do people tell you, go after the football?
What a play.
You got him held up, tackle the football, pull it out.
Feel free not to punt it into the stands.
Well, that was a little bit. But
how is that only a 5-yard penalty?
That was the one thing when everybody went nuts. I knew it was only going to be a delay of game and a 5-yard penalty, so I knew it wasn't going to destroy them if it was a 15-yarder. Obviously, what are you thinking anyway by doing that? But what a great play to rip that ball out.
They made football plays that are harped on the practice field that unless you go to a practice and you hear coaches talk all the time about some of the things like the Chiefs do, you got to give Andy Reid his credit. I've heard the guy harp on these kind of things that won them the football game, stripping the football, getting a block on an interception. I've heard him talk about those things over and over, and yesterday those players carried that out in a tight football game the way it's always going to be for them.
The Panthers are doing something this year they didn't do last year, and that's making mistakes. It comes down to turnovers. They've committed 19 turnovers through 9 games. They committed 19 turnovers all of 2015. They're not taking care of the football, especially the most important part of the game.
The Chiefs have 2 wins this season in games in which they've trailed by 17. The rest of the National Football League combined has 2 such
It's amazing.
wins.
It's amazing. And to your point, that penalty, didn't we have a guy lay down in the end zone?
Yeah.
He got a 15-yarder?
Yes.
And dude punched the ball into the stands. They get to
He
delay
punched
it.
the ball to the stands.
I remember when I sat there, we screamed over there in the war room going, what? I mean, Marcus, man. I mean,
Yeah,
tremendous
dude,
player, but come
what
on
are you
now.
doing? I don't understand where your head goes.
I'd love to have been on the headset to hear what the coaches were saying.
Because it's a brilliant play.
Oh, it
It's
is.
a brilliant play. You set
And he's
your
a
team up to
brilliant
win the
player.
game,
Yeah.
and he punched the ball.
He's a brilliant player.
Oh, amazing.
That was crazy. There were a lot of crazy moments in the NFL because they got to let Tommy go. Final thought. Anything you want around the entire National Football League?
I just thought it was very nice to see some quality games. And I've been a critic of the product for quite some time. And yesterday, my faith was restored, Golan.
Let me ask you one quick question before you go. And this is something we get into later. Do you think the league will change the rule on field goals and extra points about jumping the center? With what happened with Denver, we've seen it a couple times now with the kid Justin Simmons, who I believe had a 40-inch vert.
Yeah, he
at
can
the
get up
combine,
now.
jumped over, and obviously that was the play of the game in the Denver Broncos win over an Orange. You think they outlaw that?
I think they do because it's a reactionary league. I would not change the rule, but something tells me they will in the offseason.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little more. I just wanted to get his thought because I knew he had to go because I think it's going to become more of a topic.
Yeah.
Tommy's got to go. He's got to go talk Blackhawks this afternoon on ESPN 1000.
Blackhawks and Bulls.
And Cutler.
Anything to
Get some
avoid
Cutler talk in.
No.
anything to avoid talking about the Bears with Waddle and Sylvie this afternoon, ESPN 1000. Lewis stays here. Meanwhile, the most important thing we're going to do today is we're going to give you this word because we want to bring you with us to the College Football National Championship game thanks to AutoZone. You can be on the road with us. Get in the zone with AutoZone. I'm going to give you the word right now, and Golick will give you the 2 ways to enter. Enter both ways, and you could be coming with us to the National Championship game. Like John from Roseville, Michigan, who told us he has entered every single promotional contest we've ever done, and last week he finally won.
Paid off, John. Good job out of you.
We have a winner every day, you and a guest coming with us to the National Championship game, and today's word is crazy.
Perfect word.
Because the Saturday was so crazy, and we anticipate all the college conversation this week to be crazy, today's winning word is crazy. C-R-A-Z-Y. Here are the 2 ways to enter.
And remember, these are the only 2 ways. Any other way you enter this word, it will not count. You won't be officially entered. So take that word crazy, text it to 777-000, and enter it online at mikesroadtothecfp.com. Again, these are the only 2 ways. Text the word to 777-000 and enter it online at mikesroadtothecfp.com.
All right, so you could be on your way with us with today and tomorrow, final days of the contest. Coming up next, who exactly will be the 4 teams that the committee spits out tomorrow night? Person who's got the best educated guess in the business will tell you right after this word from AutoZone. Mike, we're at AutoZone. They do everything they can to put you in your zone, whether that's getting you the right part or giving you the helpful advice you need. They'll always help you get there.
Well, the gang at AutoZone is been great for us in helping you get to the national championship game with us by sponsoring this incredible trip. And we just gave you the word, and hopefully everybody's entering like crazy now. You can just for a couple of more days through November 15th for your chance to win Mike and Mike at College Football Playoff Sweepstakes presented by AutoZone. We really want to thank our friends at AutoZone because they're always going to help you get there, obviously even more than the national title game. They have thousands of parts in stock and helpful people to guide you. They've got everything you need to tackle your auto maintenance and repair projects with confidence. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Visit mikesroadtothecfp.com for all the official rules. That's mikesroadtothecfp.com. We really hope you're with us at the national championship game. We're back after this, Mike and Mike.
Busy Monday morning. Mike and Mike, our check of sports headlines. Seahawks beat the Patriots 31-24. New England stopped on the goal line on the final 3 plays of the game. Crazy night and a terrific day around the NFL, all things considered, including Dallas with a huge win over Pittsburgh. And Jerry Jones says Tony Romo will be active next week as the backup to Dak Prescott. Cowboys have won 8 straight. I think everybody at this point.
I don't think anybody can argue with this at all.
Yeah, Prescott's the quarterback of that team. And if you like college basketball, well, this is the place for you. The 9th annual College Hoops Tip-Off Marathon begins today. 13 games will be broadcast across ESPN2 and ESPNU beginning at 6 Eastern. And SportsCenter with Mike and Mike is brought to you by Uber.
Get your side hustle on. Sign up to drive with Uber. Earn extra cash whenever you want. Totally flexible. You're your own boss. You can cash out up to 5 times a day. No minimum amount required. Sign up today at uber.com/drive now. That's Uber. That's UBER. Uber.com/drive now.
Okay, really busy on a Monday morning with Mike and Mike. Louis Riddick is in our studio. The college football Saturday was about as compelling a day as we've seen in years. I tried very hard not to say that's the greatest day I've ever seen on Twitter because people always accuse me of being a prisoner of the moment. But what more are you looking for than the sport gave you that day? The question is, what are we looking at tomorrow night? And let's bring in Heather Dinich, our college football analyst, who will have the best answer we can get to that. Heather, I think we all have a sense of what's going to happen at number 1. And then all bets are off. So after Alabama, Heather, as you study all the data and with your understanding of what the committee has done, what do you expect to be 2, 3, and 4 tomorrow night?
I think they go with Ohio State at number 2 because the Buckeyes won when everybody else lost, and they still have a really good resume. At number 3, I'm sticking with Michigan, guys. I think the committee might too because of their resume as well. They have wins against Colorado, a win against Penn State, a win against Wisconsin. That still matters. And then at number 3, I think they go with Clemson. And I say that because head-to-head matters. And they showed us that last week. When Texas A&M lost, they did not drop the Aggies behind Auburn, and committee chair Kirby Hocutt said the reason for that was because of the head-to-head result. So if they're consistent, which they haven't been, I'll give you that much, then I think that that's what they do with Louisville behind Clemson and Washington then behind Louisville because their strength of schedule is not very good.
And let me ask you this. But going into the weekend, we had said, listen, if the 4 undefeated stay undefeated and win their conference championships, it's going to be a no-brainer. But we knew that wouldn't happen. So 3 of those teams lost. So let me put it to you this way. If Clemson, Michigan, and Washington all take care of business the rest of the way and all win their conferences, which they still can, do you believe all 3 of those teams would still be in the Final Four with Alabama?
I think so, because I think right now the Big 12 is in a hole. I mean, we see where Oklahoma is ranked ahead of West Virginia. They have 2 losses. And Kirby Hocutt last week made it clear that West Virginia's strength of schedule hasn't impressed the committee. He said, look, the Mountaineers have played 1 team in our top 25, and they lost that game to Oklahoma State, so they clearly have work to do. But look, Washington, to me, guys, is the X factor. I would not write them off with a loss to a ranked USC team, but they've got no margin for error, and they're the one that's kind of debatable because their non-conference strength of schedule, I would call it Baylor-esque. They are 128 out of 128 with wins against Rutgers, Idaho, and Portland State. So to me, they're the one with the least margin for error.
Mike and Heather Dinich, you mentioned that the committee says, and we will throw in the caveat, they don't always say the same thing in consecutive weeks, but they say head-to-head matters. So let's just lay out the scenario because it's fun. If Ohio State beats Michigan and Penn State wins out, which they should, it will be Penn State that comes out of that half of the Big Ten, not Ohio State and not Michigan. So is there a scenario where Penn State winds up winning the Big Ten championship? They beat Ohio State during the season, but a 1-loss Ohio State still winds up making the playoff ahead of them.
I don't think that a 1-loss Ohio State would make it ahead of Penn State without winning the conference championship and considering that Ohio State's only loss was to Penn State. To me, that's comparable to Clemson and Louisville. You've got 2 strikes against you. You don't win the conference championship and you lose the head-to-head battle. Those are 2 parts of the selection committee's criteria. But I do think there's a possibility that a 1-loss Ohio State can get in without winning the conference championship in addition to the Big Ten champion. And again, it goes back to Washington. Does Washington lose the Apple Cup? If it does, the Pac-12's out, and that opens the door for a crazy scenario.
All right, we've really basically got this around, Heather, 6 teams: Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Washington, Ohio State, and Louisville. Who outside of that? Who's that team from the outside that could jump into this thing?
Well, I think you have to start with Wisconsin, a 2-loss team out of the Big Ten West. I mean, if they go through and win the Big Ten championship, their only losses are to the 2 best teams, in theory, and we'll see what Penn State does, in the East, to Ohio State and Michigan. I think they've got a great shot.
Heather Dinich, again, we'll all be watching with great interest tomorrow night and see what happens. Heather, thanks a million. We appreciate it very much, and we'll check in with you as this thing continues. The most important thing she told you, I think, was right at the very beginning when she said, if they're consistent, and they often aren't, that's what happens when you put people in charge. So I'm just going to make my prediction right now, based upon all the things I believe will happen as the season continues. This is my prediction. The final 4 teams are going to be Alabama, Clemson, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. That's my prediction. I believe Ohio State is going to beat Michigan, which will put Penn State in the Big Ten championship game.
And then Wisconsin
I
will
think
win.
Wisconsin will beat them. I think Ohio State will get in as a 1-loss team ahead of Louisville and ahead of Washington. Washington is the big if. If Washington is a 1-loss team winning the Pac-12, that the debate between Ohio State and Washington will be a tough one.
And I will say, nothing to me, nothing has changed. If Clemson, Michigan, and Washington win their respective
You think Washington wins out they're in?
Yes, I do.
How does Louisville not get in here?
Louisville doesn't get in there based upon the fact that they will not win their conference, and they lost that one game. They can't get around Clemson.
Right. They can't get into the conference championship game, and they lost to the team that's going to win that conference.
So are you telling me you would – because the scenario I'm painting for you is the same one that Ohio State has.
You know what? I'm going back to the conversation that we had, I believe, with David Pollack about who really on this entire board here, where you're looking at Ohio State and you're looking at Michigan, Clemson, Wisconsin, Washington. Look, Alabama's on another level, man.
Yeah, they are.
They just are. So, really, who is the team that could possibly topple them? It's not going to be Clemson. It's just not. It's not going to be. I know they took them to the wire. I know they gave them all kinds of fits in the national championship game. It's not going to be them. I mean, I believe. I mean, Louisville somehow. I'd hate to see them not get in there. I really do believe, and I talked to some people about this after we had that conversation last week. I said, who are the people, who is the team that would really scare Nick?
Well, I mean, maybe nobody can beat them. So, I mean,
I think Ohio State is the team that would give them the toughest game. And if Ohio State beats Michigan, that win will be better than any win Clemson has. Now, Clemson will have the best loss.
Yes.
But if Ohio State beats Michigan, that, I think, at that point. Now, Ohio State, look, Michigan losing devastated Ohio State in every conceivable way. One, they wind up in a 3-way tie, or the other way, which they would have won. This way, instead, they wind up in a 2-way tie, which they lose out on. And then more, just as significantly, the Michigan win would become less impactful because all of a sudden it's a 2-loss Michigan. So Michigan losing hurt Ohio State in a bunch of different ways. But if, Lewis, to follow your scenario, if the 3 teams we'd be debating in that scenario are Louisville, Ohio State, and Washington, how are you deciding between them?
Washington gets in because
they win a conference championship.
I just go back to, and I think about that game between Louisville and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
If they play that game, if those 2 teams play 10 times, if they were to play again right now, Louisville will blow them out.
I get that, but if Ohio State and Penn State play,
I think they blow. I do. Look, I think that defense in Clemson.
A couple of Louisville's wins they're pretty uninspiring wins. I don't know, a blowout that might.
Look,
be
I don't like Clemson's defense.
Right.
I don't trust Clemson's defense.
I don't like
at
them
all.
as much as
I really don't like it. But you know what? And I really don't like it considering the fact that. Well, look, I'm not going to say I don't like it because my Pitt Panthers took them to the woodshed this weekend.
Nice job. Your Pitt Panthers.
They deserve it.
I'll say this. If you're going to go undefeated, Notre Dame was in the position when my kids were on the 2012 undefeated team. Pittsburgh took them to overtime.
Yep.
Pittsburgh missed a field goal, a 33-yarder that would have beat Notre Dame. And, oh, by the way, on that play, Notre Dame had 2 players on the field goal block team with the same number. It should have been a penalty against them.
Right.
Pitt should have had another chance. My point is just sometimes you need some fortunate things to go your way. Clemson got that when North Carolina State missed the field goal that would have beat them. Luck ran out a little bit more here when Pittsburgh makes the field goal, and congrats to Pittsburgh.
Sure.
on that win.
The argument against Louisville are the Virginia game and the Duke game, which they did not dominate those games in ways that you would want them to. The argument for them is that they lost one game to a top something team by basically 1 yard. And they have the most spectacular individual player in the country who everyone wants to see.
And I guess my point will be, if Washington goes through and wins the Pac-12, it's their one loss will have been to a team that many consider a team playing as one of the best teams in the country right now.
But they have 3 losses.
I understand that.
OSU has 3 losses.
I understand that, but these are human beings in the committee, and they're going to say, I think we can all say right now, the team that Washington lost to from USC is a way different USC team than Alabama destroyed in week 1.
Perhaps.
No, perhaps.
The committee has already told you what they think of Washington.
Oh, no,
They've given you every indication what they think of Washington.
That's, you know what, that's kind of my point right there, though. And that is this. I think there's sometimes, I don't know, Heather kind of put it succinctly there. The only consistency with the committee is how inconsistent that they are. And a lot of this stuff here, that's why I keep saying, look, That conversation we had about Louisville, and then after watching and having watched them play and remembering back to that Clemson game, boy, I hope they find a way to get in it. I think they would make this entire playoff system much, much more exciting, especially as far as interjecting some kind of worry into Alabama.
Football continues here. Football conversation all morning long. Louis Riddick is here. Brock Huard on the way this morning. Winning word again this morning in 40 minutes. If you missed it earlier, we're going to give it to you again. The winning word will give you the ways to enter. You could win a trip to the championship game with us at 8:20 Eastern Time. That's 40 minutes from now. But right now, a word from Tommy John. Golic, when things sound too good to be true, they usually are. But when Tommy John says their underwear never rides up, that is an absolute fact.
Every pair made from Featherlight breathable fabrics that move with you, not against you, providing the perfect balance of support and incredible comfort. Plus, all Tommy John underwears, all backed by the best pair you'll ever wear or it's free guarantee. Use the code Mike at TommyJohn.com for 20% off your first order. That's Mike, 20% off, TommyJohn.com. That's TommyJohn.com. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.
Ferguson, the right people, the right products, right around the corner. Visit Ferguson.com to...
Mike and Mike and all the Twitter reaction through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed with all the chaos and stress Thanksgiving can bring. Surprise your loved one by sending a beautiful 1-800-Flowers bouquet of 24 multicolored roses for only $24. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Hurry. The offer ends on Friday. Here's a perfect tweet on this college topic to sort of encapsulate what I think is the discussion. Travis tweets, if Ohio State and Louisville are both one-loss non-conference champs, how in the world do you put in Ohio State with their loss over Louisville with theirs? And it's the perfect way to sum up what is it that matters to you, right? Mm-hmm. Louisville's loss is the best loss you could possibly have. Yep. They were on the road against a team that up until this week was number 2 in the country, is still very good, and they lost by 1 yard. Yep. Ohio State's loss, while a little fluky with a block kick and everything, not as good a loss. It is to a team that is ranked. Penn State is where now? 12, 11, something like that.
In there.
But Ohio State has better wins, right? They have much better wins.
Yeah, they do.
Louisville's best win is over Florida
exactly
State.
Right. Ohio State has better wins.
So I hear Jay Billis say this every single year when we get to the NCAA tournament selection time. He always says, who did you beat? Show me who you beat. I don't want to hear who you lost to.
Yep.
Show me who you beat. And that's one way of looking at it. If you're going to say, show me who you beat, then Ohio State, I think, is the best of the one-loss teams anyway.
Boy, we got a lot to play out still. I mean, But as I said, for as crazy as it was, I said if all the teams went out going into the weekend, they'd be in, and I still kind of think that. I still kind of think Washington, they're the one, too. Let's be honest. If Michigan wins out and wins a Big Ten champ, they're in. Clemson the same way. We know they're in. Washington, so I guess that's the one I'm really saying is the one. Would a Pac-12 champion Washington with one loss be over? Well, Ohio State would be out of it. Then they would have 2 losses. It would be Washington and Louisville.
Well, the crazy part of this thing is that Ohio State almost can't win the Big Ten. They almost can't.
Right.
They will require Penn State losing
to Rutgers or Michigan State.
Well, I mean, Michigan State's not unlosable, I guess.
Yeah, it's not, but it's far-fetched.
Rutgers in their 3 games against Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State, I think lost Can we look that up? I saw the stat. It was like 160 to nothing.
If there's a team that could step up, Michigan State.
It was 100. I'm not making that up.
No, it was horrible. Michigan State, at the end of the day, they have athletes and some tough players, but they're just having a horrible year this year. So Penn State, boy, what a position they're in.
Rutgers lost to Ohio State 58-0. They lost to Michigan State 49-0. They lost to Michigan 78-0.
God, that's incredible.
Mike and Mike in our Sports Center, brought to you by AutoZone. I present you without comment. What is there to say? We're giving you a chance to be on the road with us to the national championship game. Just be listening every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike on the road to the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone. Visit mikesroadtothecfp.com for official rules. Next time we give you the word is in 30 minutes. From right now, we'll give you the word and you could win. All right, in the break, I said to Louis Riddick, what is the most significant thing from the NFL we haven't gotten to? And you gave me 2 words, Cam Chancellor.
No question about it. Look, talking to those people out there last year, on a football team that has so many strong personalities and so many good football players. You think of Seattle, you think of Russell Wilson on offense, and then you think Richard Sherman on defense. And really, from there, then you kind of just start filling it in. Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, Doug Baldwin. You start thinking, the guy who makes it all go, who is the enforcer, the communicator, the leader. If you want to, if there really is such a thing as an alpha male, is Cam Chancellor. And you saw it last night. You saw his effect on that football team. You see the effect that he has on that football team when he isn't in uniform, in terms of how he rallies the troops. Like when Richard Sherman had that sideline tirade against the Atlanta Falcons. Mm-hmm. You saw how he was the one who really rallied the troops then. And you see yesterday the effect that he has from a communication standpoint, getting those guys on the same page in the secondary, and from a physical standpoint as far as just coming downhill. And, Cam just absolutely just knocks the breath out of people. And how he can cover his forced fumble against Julian Edelman that led to their go-ahead touchdown, I believe, in that sequence in the fourth quarter last night. This guy's one of the best players in the National Football League, period.
6'3", 2 1/4, and an absolute thumper. So go to that play at the end. I don't even have to ask. I'm sure you're going to say there was no penalty there at all. Gronk initiated the contact. But I thought it interesting to me the way Gronk explained that play, that fade route on 4th down, that he was surprised Cam played off him as much as he did. He said, I tried to get up on his toes, and he basically had to go farther than he thought he had to. That's why he initiated contact. Yeah. I almost thought with the communication and how long Gronk and Tom have played together, I kind of thought they'd have switched it to that quick back shoulder right past the end zone line throw, that quick throw, because Cam was so far off him. I was kind of surprised that didn't happen.
Yeah, they probably could have made that kind of adjustment. I think the reason why Cam probably backed off is this. He knew that they were going to do something to really aimed at that back pylon. What's Gronk going to do to you at the line of scrimmage? He's going to start you for a minute and then kind of either swim you or just throw you out of the way. So really what he was doing was he was kind of soft pressing it and saying, look, I know you're going there. If you initiate contact with me, look, you're not going to push Cam Chancellor over like that. He was trying to get trying to get the PI too. Yep. He tried to sell it a little bit too, but it was a smart play by him to back off and anticipate the throw.
Look, let's say this for what he did last night. When the game was on the line, he did by himself what everyone says is undoable. Yep. He went one-on-one with Rob Gronkowski and won.
Yes, he did.
We talk about Gronk being the biggest matchup issue in the entire National Football League, one of the biggest of all time. And on an island by himself against Gronkowski, he went head-to-head and won. And that wins the game.
Look, statistically speaking, in the 4 games that they played with him and then the subsequent games that they haven't been able to play with him, their passing yards per game is markedly different with him on the field as opposed to when he's not on the football field. And in this day and age of statistics, we all want to measure everything by what we can just kind of see here on a screen. Cam's ability, though, supersedes statistics.
All right, we roll on. The winning word is 25 minutes away, and the MVP of the league is
Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans proudly supports Mike and Mike. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century. Forget about digging through stacks of paperwork. This completely online process lets you safely share your bank statements and pay stubs with a touch of a button. Using your phone or tablet, you can get approved for purchase or refinance in just a few minutes. Get a custom mortgage solution at your own pace, whenever and wherever you want. So if you're looking to refinance or buy a home, check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/Mikes.
Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Hey, basketball
basketball fans, I'm Cassidy Hubbard. On the latest NBA Lockdown podcast, me and Amin El-Hassan, along with producer Josh, discuss, is James Harden the real MVP this season? Are you a believer in him? Download the podcast.